Lewis Hamilton's decision to leave the Mercedes F1 team and move to Ferrari next season has upset the apple cart. Toto Wolff is having a tough time getting over it, understandably, and his attempts to get Max Verstappen out of Red Bull scream just a little bit of desperation. Assuming that his pursuit of the reigning world champion fails, and I'm recording this on the 1st of April and then going away for a long weekend, so knowing my luck, he's probably already a Mercedes driver. But assuming he isn't, despite the $150 million offer that's on the table, then the much talked about Andrea Kimi Anotnelli is probably the favourite to take on that Mercedes second seat alongside George Russell next season. However, the hype surrounding him is getting wildly out of control, and Toto Wolff's track record of picking rookie drivers is pretty abysmal. So with all that in mind, I'm George from F1 Reverse, this is Don't At Me, and I'm going to tell you why all the hype around Andrea Kimi Anotnelli has got completely out of control, why he isn't the next Lewis Hamilton, and why he isn't going to replace Logan Sargeant in a Williams in the next month. In case you don't religiously follow Formula 4 or Formula Regional, and let's be honest, who does, you probably hadn't heard the name Andrea Kimi Anotnelli until Lewis Hamilton said that he was leaving Mercedes for Ferrari. Antonelli is a 17-year-old Italian who has shot through the world of international junior racing. He's completely skipped F3, and he's now in his first season in F2, the tier just below Formula 1. He's been a contracted Mercedes junior driver since 2019, well the back end of it anyway, after a very impressive 2019 in karting. And since 2019, he's won a hell of a lot of titles, and it's a bit of a list, so I'm just going to read it off my notes that's just below there. Starting off with karting series, he won the CIK FIA European Championship, the WSK Euro Series, this is his second one. Then he won the CIK FIA European Championship again, and then when he got to Formula Racing, the junior categories, he won the Italian F4 Championship, the ADAC Formula 4 Championship, the FIA Motorsport Games Formula 4 Cup, Formula Regional Middle East Championship, and the Formula Regional European Championship. That's a big trophy cabinet, and you can see why Mercedes were interested in just skipping F3 altogether and getting him straight into F2 to see what he can do. Antonelli is currently 9th after 6 races in F2's 22 Driver Championship, but considering his teammate Ollie Bearman, who was absolutely showered with praise after his Saudi Arabia F1 debut where he deputised for Carlos Sainz and scored points, he's currently 19th with just 1 point finish in 4 races, so Antonelli's doing a pretty good job in the machinery he has, by the 6 races that F2 has had so far this season. However, assuming he stays 9th until the end of the season, a finishing position of 9th in F2 should never normally be good enough to get you into F1. For context, Nikita Mazepin finished his final F2 season in 5th, and Logan Sargeant finished his in 4th. Just for context, but you can see the comparison. Obviously, it's not that simple. I'm not saying that Andrea Kimi Anotnelli is a worse driver than either of those two, and I'm not saying that either of those two are worse than Andrea Kimi Anotnelli as well. They're just not really comparable at the moment. Since Lewis Hamilton broke the news he was leaving Mercedes, Antonelli has been getting loads of media attention, and Toto Wolff has been doing his best to hype him up as well. And as often happens in F1, once the hype train leaves the station, there's really no stopping it. I've already seen loads of people, and even some reasonably well-respected journalists, saying that he could be the next Max Verstappen or Lewis Hamilton, and frankly, it's all getting a bit ridiculous. So Merck have been getting him ready for F1, obviously, that's what you do with your junior drivers. He recently tested the 2022 Mercedes W13 at Imola because Toto Wolff wanted him to drive a good car, not one of the crap boxes his team has produced more recently. His words, not mine. No joke, that's what he said. Well, not quite what he said, but that's what he meant. It's important to remember that testing times outside of official F1 sessions are pretty sketchy. There's a lot of variables. You don't know what's going on with fuel or tyres or the weather. Everything changes. Remember that. So when Daniel Ricciardo was testing for Red Bull before he returned to VCARB, he apparently matched Max Verstappen's pole time at Silverstone in the same car, and everyone got carried away and very excited. And then look how that turned out. If that test was representative, then Yuki Tsunoda should smash Max Verstappen in the same machinery? Probably not, I think. So the absolute record for the W13 at Imola, which is a car that Antonelli has driven, was a 119.457, which was recorded by George Russell in Free Practice 2 back in 2022. Now, I could only find times from the first day of testing. These aren't public tests, so I don't really know how it got out. But anyway, Antonelli never made it below a 121. He'd obviously never driven an F1 car before, so, we can give him a bit of slack, but at the same time, he's not smashing George Russell or anything. He's not blowing the world away with his speed. Again, these times kind of mean nothing, but with Mercedes getting him in this car and kind of everything moving forward and this little bit of hype around him, I'm seeing rumours from normally pretty reputable journalists saying that Antonelli will take over the Williams car from the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix later this month. It's now April when you're watching. That's impossible to start, okay? To race in F1, you need an FIA super license, and to get an FIA super license, you need a few things. You need 40 super license points, which Antonelli does have, congratulations. What he doesn't have is 18 years of age, which you have to be to get an FIA super license. He can thank Max Verstappen for that. And you also need an actual road driving license, which he can't get until he turns 18 in Italy anyway. He doesn't turn 18 till August, so he's definitely not going to be driving a Williams at the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix later this month. Some people are saying that the FIA might bend the rules for him, just say, no, it's fine, he can drive anyway. Why on earth would they do that, though? It's just madness. They didn't want a 17-year-old Max Verstappen driving at the time, but they couldn't stop him. They now don't want anyone else 17 driving, and they're not going to bend the rules for some Italian kid because Toto Wolff complains that he can't get him in a car quick enough. It's not going to happen. He can't even do an F1 rookie test, as in drive an FP1 without a super license, so we're not going to see him on a race weekend until August at the earliest. So any talk of him replacing Logan for the rest of the season before joining up with Mercedes for 2025, it's just utter rubbish. Sorry, but it is. So, I hear you screaming, but George, I heard he's an ex-Lewis Hamilton and Toto Wolff really rates him. And to that, I say, you need a better source than Toto Wolff. Toto tried to get Nick de Vries onto the grid for years. Nick had that role of the Toto Wolff parrot, where you stand at Toto Wolff's shoulder in the garage and you get caught on all the videos and stuff of him. He was saying that Nick de Vries was absolutely incredible. Nick got a seat, then he got fired 10 races later. After that, he took on Mick Schumacher as his new parrot who sits by his shoulder, trying to sell him to the rest of the grid and get him back and get him in a seat. But Mick had just been fired by Haas after costing them tens of millions of dollars in crashes over a few seasons, and no one was interested. Can't imagine why. The odds of a rookie rocking up to F1 and coming second in the championship, like Hamilton did or Jacques Villeneuve did it as well, is pretty much nothing. It's just not going to happen, especially in modern Formula 1. The fact that Hamilton got as close as he did actually is completely mind-boggling and is perhaps one of his most underappreciated achievements in the sport, and perhaps even the second best after his 7 world titles. I mean, it's incredibly difficult to do. Just to put into perspective F1 rookies and how excited people get, I went and did some stats, and I hate doing stats, so this is how strongly I feel about this, is I went and did stats. So, bear with me, notes again. Including 2007, which was Hamilton's rookie year, there have been 65 F1 rookies who have competed in a Grand Prix. 23% of those never scored a point. 64.6% of them never stood on the podium. 80% of them never scored a win. And just 4.6% of them got a championship. Vettel, Hamilton, Verstappen. That's 18 years worth of rookies and 3 championship drivers, which perhaps tells you just how good those 3 were. That's a lot of drivers and only 3 champions. So some of those rookies, of the 65 and the 62 who never won a championship, some of them did really well before coming to F1 as well. Do you remember Sebastian Bourdais? Unless you watch IndyCar, I bet you don't. But he had 6 open-wheel racing championship titles before making it to F1, which is more than Antonelli, surprisingly, because he has a lot. But it's more than Antonelli. He never stood on a podium. Sebastian never stood on a podium. He only lasted 2 seasons, and he went on to become one of the best IndyCar drivers of all time. Lance Stroll. We all love to hate him. He won in F4. He won in F3. Skipped F2, went to F1, one podium in 148 starts. Mick Schumacher, F2 winner, F3 winner. Not the best Formula 1 driver ever. Success in junior categories does not mean success in Formula 1. And a lack of success in junior categories doesn't mean you're going to lack success in Formula 1. It's not that simple. They are different series, they're different cars. The point of all of this is not to knock Antonelli. He may very well make it to Formula 1, he may find success, and he may enjoy a very long career. He's obviously a very skilled driver, with all those titles and the fact that Mercedes put the faith in him to skip F3. I have no doubt he is an excellent racing driver, far better than I am, far better than I would imagine you are as well. But the hype around him, and the fact that he's going to come in and drive for Williams in a few weeks' time is, well, A, impossible, and B, it's just frankly ridiculous. And the people demanding he gets a Mercedes seat next season need to calm down as well. He's driven 6 races in F2. No one has any idea how good he is. Will he get a seat at Mercedes? Potentially. Will people be disappointed in how he does because of all the hype that's been built up around him beforehand? Probably, yeah. So, is Antonelli going to succeed in F1 when he gets a chance? I really hope so. He's probably a great guy, and if he does get to Formula 1 and succeeds, then he 100% deserves it. And you know what? All the best luck in the world to him in doing it. Do I think he's the reincarnation of Ayrton Senna, Juan Manuel Fangio, and Alberto Ascari combined into one superhuman racing machine, second coming of God? No, I don't. And you shouldn't believe the hype around that either. And whatever you do, don't at me on that.